On this edition of Fulton at Work, the school to prison pipeline will tell you how Fulton's justice partners are working with education leaders to keep kids in the classroom and out of jail. And later, police use technology to keep kids safe while on school buses. I'm Daryl Carver. We'll talk about all these important issues and more on Fulton at Work. Please stay with us. Welcome to our program. I'm Daryl Carver. We're talking today about how judges and school officials are trying to keep growing numbers of students from ending up on the wrong side of the law. A grant-funded program at juvenile court is literally trying to keep kids in school and out of prison. FGTV's Priscilla Ortega starts us off.
Fulton is one of 16 jurisdictions across the country chosen to be a part of the School Pathways Project. Now the goal is to prevent students from getting a criminal record. So leaders from the Fulton and Atlanta public school systems joined juvenile court judges to lay out their action plan. From local schools to behind bars, that's the pipeline school and juvenile court leaders want to derail.
We have to move from a reactive posture to a more proactive posture.
Fulton's juvenile court judges and a host of education leaders have been drafting ideas for more than a year. Now the group is ready to move forward with their plan of working together to help disruptive students.
That one approach is for us is to be a resource as a partnership within the schools for the principals. We have that presence there on the property, but also we serve as mentors for the students.
According to the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, in 2013, the Fulton County Juvenile Detention Center admitted about 1,700 youth. But through the School Pathways program, schools will have additional resources to help students that commit low-level offenses like fighting. So instead of having those students arrested, the program will focus on fixing the underlying issues that may be causing the kids to lash out.
This is not about diverting cases that are of more serious or violent nature. This is more so looking at low-level offenses for behavior that's really historically been considered disruptive, but has evolved to become considered delinquent.
We don't have to take kids and put them into a detention center where they're going to be exposed to a lot of bad actors and potentially even, gang recruitment. We don't need that.
Organizers from the School Pathways Project will continue to monitor and give guidance as the school systems and juvenile court judges continue with their plan. Reporting from the Juvenile Justice Center, I'm Priscilla Ortega for FGTV.
Thanks, Priscilla. The Honorable Renata Turner, one of our Fulton County Juvenile Court Associate Judges, spearheaded this Pathways initiative. First of all, Judge, welcome to Fulton at Work.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
Now, what exactly is the school to prison pipeline?
The school to prison pipeline is the consequence, unintentional or intentional, of over-criminalizing typical, normal school misbehavior. It started with the Columbine shootings, and the reaction to that was the advent of things like metal detectors at the entrances of schools, the zero tolerance policies that flourished throughout the country that threw children out of school for anything that could possibly be conceived as a weapon, from something as benign as a fingernail file or a toy gun. And then we started seeing more and more police officers or resource officers actually in school. And of course, these officers would arrest students for crimes, and they would end up in the criminal justice system. And the data is clear that when children enter the criminal justice system, the chances that they will continue into the justice system through their adulthood increases exponentially. And so the schools were unwittingly actually creating a pathway or a pipeline from schools to prison for far too many of our children, particularly our minority and poor children.
Now, how specifically then does the School Pathways Project address that pipeline?
So the School Pathways Project attempts to cut off the pipeline and instead create a pathway from school to success in adulthood. We do that primarily by identifying the crimes that need to stay in school, crimes typically that you and I would have been just sent to the principal's office for, crimes that can be dealt with in school without actually having to get criminal justice involvement.
Now, how then would you separate those crimes from more serious crimes? What are some of the examples of some of the referrals that are school-based that would be specifically addressed by this?
So last fall, the schools, both school systems, APS and Fulton County, along with their resource officers and police officers, came together and talked about which crimes we thought could stay out of the criminal justice system. And those crimes consisted of things like battery, if you hit a student, fighting, affray, obstruction if you run for the police or run from a police officer, and things like misdemeanor marijuana possession. Things that are low-level offenses, nothing very serious, but things that we didn't feel needed to actually result in an arrest for a child.
Some people will say this is a school issue, others say it's a justice system issue. What are the advantages of juvenile court, Fulton County Schools, Atlanta Public Schools all partnering on these school-based referrals?
Well, it's a both-and issue. It's both a criminal justice or juvenile justice issue and a school issue. We are working with the same group of kids, so we can't really dissect them as we seek to help them. So this collaboration actually allows us to work together to partner to address the needs of the children before they become embroiled in the juvenile justice system. And I think this is really critical that more and more systems look for ways to bridge our services because, again, we're working to help the same group of kids, and it doesn't benefit them if we're working in silos. We need to be talking together, sharing data, and sharing resources in order to get the most benefit to help these children.
Now, I know recently the juvenile court signed a memorandum of understanding with both APS and the Fulton schools. What do these cover and why are they so significant?
So the MOUs cover, really identify the crimes that we're not going to send automatically to juvenile court and gives the resource officers or police officers a pretty clear guidelines on how to handle these crimes when they are perpetrated in school. So we identified the crimes, again, that we didn't want to automatically come into court. We discuss how police officers or resource officers on school campuses can have the authority to use their discretion to determine what would be the proper response to the incident, whether or not it just needs to be a mediation right there on site to talk to the kids, whether or not the kids may need some more intensive services, whether it's counseling or including family counseling, or if we actually did want to engage the juvenile court without actually having to file charges. The court is partnering with the schools to offer our probation services to divert, again, the cases from coming to court. Things like our mediation program, or we have other youth-involved programs that they can engage in without having to actually have charges filed against them.
And Judge Turner, we're going to go more into these issues in just a moment, and we'll talk a little bit more about all of this when we come back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We've been talking about how the Fulton County courts have partnered with school officials to keep kids in class and out of jail. Now, Juvenile Court Associate Judge Renata Turner, before we left, we mentioned that you had a memorandum of understanding that the court signed with APS and Fulton County Schools. I wanted to go a little bit more into this program, though. I know our FGTV crew was able to attend 2 of the School Pathways Project meetings. Can you give us some idea of all the consideration and work that went into preparing those MOUs?
Yes, Fulton was very fortunate. We were one out of 16 counties throughout the country that was selected to receive technical assistance through the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. And they helped us get started and guided us through the process of creating our own specific MOUs and pathway solutions. We've met with leaders from the Department of Justice, Georgia Appleseed, of course, both school systems and their school resource and police officers. And we talked about the data that shows the reality that when kids are removed from school for out-of-school suspensions or detained or even sent to our alternative schools, the chances that they graduate just plummet. And again, if they are in the juvenile justice system, the chances are that they will end up in prison or in and out of jail while they're adults also increases. And so once we met to talk about the data, to talk about the solutions, and I think we all, in our conversations, we realized that we were all on the same page. Again, working in our individual silos, but still on the same page. And so we just wanted to break down those silos in order to really do the work and make it more than just theoretical, but actual work and practical work. And so we've been meeting throughout 2015. We met toward the end of 2015 to actually craft the MOU and to flesh out the details for that. More recently, we've met to hammer out the resources that we're going to offer to kids, the alternatives to arresting them or suspending them. So we're working together to pool our resources together and our services together, again, so we can be on the same page and provide the most bang for our buck and the biggest results for our children.
Now, in your view, how significant is it to see both of those school systems and the court systems of the state's largest county all come together to address these issues as one community?
I think it's very significant that the two largest school systems in the state, along with the largest juvenile court system in the state, came together and we were able to work together and forge a new path for our students. I know it's very tricky and scary whenever you're trying new things, whenever you appear to be light on crime, because everyone wants to be tough on crime, even though that does not always work, if it ever. But we came together despite all those landmines, if you will, of it not working, and decided we had to do this for our children. Again, I think both systems realized that we had a problem and we had to address it, and we had to address it holistically. We could not just not talk to each other or talk at each other. We needed to talk with each other. And so I'm very proud of the work that both school systems have done, and proud of the work that the court is doing, and all of our pathway partners. This is a community-wide effort. We are relying on our social services organizations and our volunteer organizations to help us really craft out workable solutions and alternatives for our children who find themselves in trouble at school.
So what is next for the School Pathways Project?
So the next thing we're going to do is, again, solidify our resources, really identify services, some of them creative, some of them I'm sure we have not thought of yet, to address some of the misbehavior that's in school, address some of the underlying problems with children and their families that really is the genesis for a lot of the misbehavior. Our families are in trouble because of lack of jobs, education and skills within families, and a lot of dysfunction. And part of it is the mass incarceration of so many fathers and now mothers who are not in the home. So we're working with all collaborators to come up with solutions to really address those issues for children. And we're looking for ways to partner with other initiatives. We have a dually involved youth project in juvenile court in which we're addressing the needs of children who have both criminal and delinquent and dependent matters in court, to really hone in and focus on how to better address their needs. So we're partnering with other organizations, and we're just reaching out to the community and hoping that we, or not hoping, but we're going to make it happen, that we actually create successful alternatives to keep our children out of the criminal justice system and onto a pathway of success.
Well, and as we conclude this segment, I think one of the things I wanted to go into was how big a difference does it make separating out some of these young people that did commit these minor offenses from some young people that frankly are much more hardened criminals.
Right. So one of the things that happens when a kid is detained, first of all, you know, when we detain a child, that's like our trump card. That is the most severe punishment we can give them. So if we pull out the most severe punishment we can possibly offer for something that is minor, we don't have anything to graduate to if kids get into even deeper trouble. So we're putting kids who are, again, things that we would have been sent to the principal's office for, fighting or taking someone's calculator, or running from a police officer, or mouthing off at a school official. And we're locking up with kids who are involved with gangs, who are committing burglaries and carjackings. And so they learn to become better criminals, and they learn to affiliate with gangs. And so we're not doing any service to those kids whose lives could be easily turned around with the right guidance and the counseling and the support they need. We don't need to turn every misbehaving act into a criminal act. We don't need to manufacture our own criminals so that we're constantly feeding the criminal justice system or the prison system. We need to be redirecting our kids. Kids make mistakes. There's brain science to say kids' brains don't fully develop until they're 25, and so they still lack impulse control, and they still make bad decisions. And I'm sure anybody who is over the age of 25 knows that you've made plenty of mistakes in your teens and early 20s that you would not do if you could take it back. You wish you could take it back. And so we don't need to encapsulate a mistake that someone made when they're in their teens and make them pay for it the rest of their lives by exposing them to hardened criminals and to a prison system that's not designed to, unfortunately, rehabilitate them.
Judge Turner, thank you so much for joining us. I know we'll be hearing more about the Pathways Project over the coming months and years. Thank you so much for being our guest today. And we'll be right back with how police are keeping kids safe on school buses. Please stay with us. Now, Fulton Police have also formed a partnership with Fulton County Schools, but this agreement has to do with keeping kids safe on school buses. The Fulton County Board of Commissioners joined the Fulton County school system to help keep children safe on the road.
Request approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Fulton County Schools and Fulton County to implement a school bus safety camera enforcement program.
Move approval. Is there a second? Second.
The agreement will allow county police to use recorded images from cameras mounted to school buses. Those images may show motorists not stopping for children getting on and off of school buses. South Fulton traffic officers will then review film footage whenever a car appears to pass the stop arm of a school bus, and the cost for violators could be very high.
If you are convicted of passing a school bus stop arm, the fine is $550, and that's first offense.
Fines are not the only consequences violators of school bus stop arms face. Their insurance rates could go up, and too many violations could eventually result in the suspension of your driver's license. Most people seem to be confused if there is more than one lane of traffic. However, the law says the only time you're free to go around a stopped school bus on a multi-lane street is if there is a median between the opposing lanes. Chief Stiles says the department's written about a dozen tickets on people who have violated the law and offers this warning to future violators.
When you have a mounted camera on the school buses that activates when that arm comes out, that acts as the eyes of the police department.
6 county police officers will be trained to review recorded violations and send monthly reports to the school district on the number of violations issued. All parties hope the cameras will mean a safe bus ride for all of Fulton County students. Now, one final note on the buses. You may recall that Georgia state lawmakers back in 2011 approved a bill requiring that all traffic stop in both directions when school buses are stopped to pick up or drop off those young passengers. Thank you so much for joining us for Fulton at Work, and a very special thanks to our guest today. Now, we want to connect with you online. Please check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm Darrell Carver, and we'll see you next time.